Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer Acheson, a student at the University of Alberta in the final year of my Bachelor of Arts in Recreation, Sport, and Tourism degree. I've been working alongside ARPA since early January as part of my degree requirements. Throughout the past 4 months, I've spent time learning about reconciliation and Indigenous culture here in Alberta, and I would like to share some of my learnings with you today. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that I am here today on Treaty 6 territory, traditional meeting grounds and home to Indigenous communities such as the Cree, Dene, Anishinaabe, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Blackfoot people, as well as traditional homeland of the Métis people of Alberta. I felt it was important to begin my presentation with a land acknowledgement because I learned from valuable resources such as the Calgary Foundation, that acknowledging land is an important part of reconciliation that helps build respectful relationships and honors the history of North America and its people. How my learning journey started. I started learning about reconciliation and what it is by familiarizing myself with ARPA's reconciliation journey, their efforts, and the work they have been doing since 2015. The majority of my learning came directly from ARPA's resources, such as their Indigenous Engagement and Awareness Toolkit and Oral Knowledge Hub, which can be found on the Walking with Indigenous Communities portion of their website. My understanding, based on the information I gathered from ARPA's resources, is that their overall goal as an organization is to demonstrate dedication to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I felt it was important for me to start my presentation off in this way by acknowledging these resources because they were the foundation of how I began my learning journey about reconciliation. Each resource gave me the opportunity to deepen my understanding of what the word reconciliation means, what it is in an Indigenous context, and how I can continue to help moving forward. Next, I would like to talk about the connection to land in an Indigenous context. The first part of my learning that I would like to share is how the connection to land ties into reconciliation in meaningful ways. It is my understanding that the connection to land has an important role to play in reconciliation, which I learned about by listening to various grandmother circles located on ARPA's Oral Knowledge Hub, while also applying some of my previous knowledge from my time as a university student. One aspect of reconciliation consists of an active effort to raise awareness and address issues of colonization, focusing on the negative effects that Indigenous people suffered as a result. Part of the colonization process led to Indigenous communities suffering from a widespread loss of their connection to the land. From what I have learned, it appears that through reconciliation, this connection to land can be restored by providing Indigenous people with proper access to the land they need, allowing them to strengthen their cultural connections and thrive in areas such as hunting, fishing, gathering, and agriculture. The effects of colonization and the loss of land was devastating for all Indigenous people and communities. However, through active reconciliation efforts, an important part of their identity, tradition, and way of life can be restored. With the help of proper education and awareness around reconciliation, combined with the efforts of organizations like ARPA, who are committed to creating change in the province, the Indigenous people's connection to land can be properly restored. In addition to the work that ARPA does, there are other organizations I learned about, such as the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association and Canadian Parks Council, that also recognize the importance of land and are equally committed to change. I discovered these documents from the toolkit I previously mentioned, where I learned that these two organizations are working to restore balance and reciprocity in green spaces by ensuring inclusion of Indigenous leadership is available at all levels of parks and communities, which goes a long way towards positively impacting and contributing towards reconciliation efforts. Next, I'd like to discuss some of the work I've done as a helper. In my time with ARPA, I have participated in various reconciliation initiatives with elders from across the province and was able to experience firsthand what it means to be a helper and what the experience is like. By looking at the PowerPoint slide here, you can see in more detail some of the things I've been involved with as a helper and some of the work that I did. What I learned from being a helper is that it can be very beneficial for everyone involved, as long as the help is being offered for the right reasons and done in the correct ways. Ensuring that Indigenous cultures and traditions are well appreciated and respected. As a non-Indigenous person, I feel it is important for me to properly educate myself anytime I need to facilitate as a helper, so that I can maintain respect for the cultures and traditions that are such important pieces of Indigenous people's identity. I am very fortunate I had the opportunity of being a helper because it reinforced some of the knowledge and teachings that I previously gathered from the online resources I've explored. I learned that being a helper is beneficial because it allowed me to understand and learn that if the best interests of the parties involved are kept in mind throughout the process, it can significantly improve the likelihood of successful interactions and progress being achieved in areas such as reconciliation. Acting as a helper was beneficial for me because it allowed me to continue learning about the importance of the elders teaching and passing down their knowledge to the youth through stories. As a non-Indigenous person learning about reconciliation, this was key in my journey and allowed me to understand why acting as a helper can be so important when done properly. Moving on, I would like to talk about some of the things I've learned about Indigenous culture. One component of my learning journey that I will address later on is the effort I have devoted towards being an ally in reconciliation. In order for me to be as well versed and educated as possible around reconciliation, I need to learn to promote allyship. One of the ways I plan on doing so is by sharing what I have learned about Indigenous culture here in Alberta. Using various resources on ARPA's Oral Knowledge Hub, I learned about cultural traditions and practices of Indigenous groups, such as the Blackfoot. What I learned about the Blackfoot way of life is that how they are a verbal society who communicate through oral systems with limited writing. In general, the importance is placed heavily on the use of language to communicate. Next, I'd like to discuss the importance of song. Using the same resources that ARPA has available, I was taught more about song by Spike Eagle Speaker Jr., who is featured on the Oral Knowledge Hub. Spike taught me how song is very important to many different Indigenous groups, with each group having their own unique form of song and unique way of communicating through song. Because they are a verbal society and place significant importance on oral communication, song is often used as a way to tell stories and pass down knowledge and information. In addition, only certain individuals have the right to practice and perform song. Finally, I'd like to discuss smudge and why it is so important. All of my knowledge regarding smudge came directly from Dr. Reg and Rose Croshoe, Blackfoot elders who work closely alongside ARPA and have many valuable resources and teachings regarding reconciliation and Indigenous culture, traditions, and ways of life that they have shared. They taught me that smudge is a way of creating open communication between people before a conversation, which allows for truth to be spoken. Truth, connection to the Creator, and call to order are the three most important components of the smudge. In addition, there are three things that take place during a smudge. The first thing is recognizing the Creator. which is done as the smoke goes up into the air. The second thing is starting a formal discussion with who you are talking to, whether it is a group or an individual. When the smudge is put down, it is considered a call to order and a formal start to the conversation. The third thing that takes place is the smudge being considered a form of truthing to the Creator, which is very important to the Blackfoot. In addition, I also learned that smudge is not unique to the Blackfoot. Many other Indigenous cultures do smudge as well. However, each one does it differently, and were given different plants and herbs by the Creator to use for their smudge. Dr. Reg Croshu explained that the Blackfoot used sweetgrass, and the Cree, for example, used sage. I included this in my presentation as I believe that an important step in my journey learning about reconciliation is to properly understand and respect certain Indigenous cultures and traditions. Therefore, in order to become better educated, I chose to learn from individuals such as Reg and Rose. Finally, I'd like to discuss my future role in reconciliation and how I can continue to help. One of the most important things I learned from my reconciliation journey is that it is important for me to stay involved long term. Now that I have a better understanding of the meaning behind the term reconciliation, what it is, and what can be done to address it, as well as what I can continue to do moving forward, I want to continue furthering my education on the topic. I plan on doing this by sharing what I learned about reconciliation with the people around me, while also directing those I communicate with to visit ARPA's website so they can learn from the same resources I did. I have learned that as a non-Indigenous person, there's an ongoing role for me to play in terms of addressing reconciliation efforts, as long as I maintain the proper intentions and purpose behind the work that I do. I am now more aware and better informed on the topic than I once was, which has allowed me to understand that it is my responsibility to continue taking action and educating myself on important issues, how to address them, and how I can continue to help moving forward. Another concept I learned about that I feel is important to continue practicing is allyship. I wanted to end my presentation by talking about allyship because I believe it is one of the most important concepts I learned about during my reconciliation journey. And it has the most significance for me personally as I continue my journey into the future. Through the learning I gathered around reconciliation in an Indigenous context, I believe I can work towards promoting equal access to resources in areas like recreation and parks. I also hope to disrupt oppression and build relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in hopes of collaboration and benefit for all. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to me discuss my reconciliation learning journey today. Here are all of the resources I gathered my knowledge from, which I hope you access on your own time if you have not already.